he would say what a lot of Clare people say, up the banner. Or if he rang you and if he wanted to know some news, or if you were about to tell him something, he'd say, break it to me gently. I always thought he could speak French, but in fact he only had 2 words, merci beaucoup, thank you very much. And if he was about to give out to you for something, he'd say, I'll crack your jaw in 2 places. I suppose if there was one fault he had, he never said no to anybody. He worked so hard and always for other people. He joined us, we were so lucky in Kerry Diocese that he came on loan for us from the Sacred Heart, and then he joined us. And I was saying to Bishop Murphy this morning, like he was a big soccer fan, I said to Kevin come on a free transfer and did you pay for it? And Bishop Murphy didn't answer, but I'm sure many people in Kerry would say that Kevin was worth his weight in gold for all the goodness he did, all the joy he brought, and his great wit. He was a brilliant communicator, and I think everybody knows that from the radio, the television, the Evening Echo in Cork. He had lovely catchy phrases for his articles. The Evening Echo was called McNamara's Band. In Killarney he wrote for the local Outlook, and it said, his article was called A Little Bit of Heaven with Father Kevin. So he was brilliant at work, but I think his main baby was his parish newsletter. Every week around Thursday, the parish newsletter had to be ready. It had to be sent out to the shops. Kevin would always have extra parish newsletters in his car, because it was always a gift for somebody when he'd meet you. He'd give you the parish newsletter, and if he called to somebody's house, he'd always leave one behind. But the parish it was always interesting. There was always something you'd learn from it. A few weeks ago, Kevin rang me one morning and he was shouting on the phone. He was shouting 1-0. I had no idea what he was talking about. And the next thing he told me that Clare had got 1 All-Star, Tony Kelly. And he did math that Limerick got 12. The fact that Tony Kelly got 1 for Clare was more important. But I suppose when I look back over 2021, they picked the best players in the country as All-Stars. That team was picked. On last Tuesday morning, I think that our Lord in heaven was picking his All-Stars to come to him. And I think, in reality, Clare have 2 All-Stars, because I think Father Kevin was an All-Star that was called home to play in the heavenly team on last Tuesday morning. I was looking at many great tributes that were given to Kevin on RIP.ie. One person said, I'm sure now he's in heaven. He's looking for Big Tom and Joe Dolan to organise another concert. Now, I would say myself, there's another man he's looking for also. I would think he's probably looking for Frank Sinatra, and they're both singing I Did It My Way. So today we salute Kevin. Kevin did it his way. He did it his way with love, with forgiveness, with great hope. And after 40 years of being a priest, he still was so enthusiastic about life and about spreading the message of love, kindness, and forgiveness to everybody he met. He touched so many people's lives through the media, through celebrations in the church, but also his gentle presence when he visited the elderly and the housebound on the first Fridays. And when Kevin came for Holy Communion on the first Friday, very often if somebody's birthday happened to be that day, he'd take a bunch of flowers or maybe a birthday cake for the person. He was so thoughtful. At the end of novenas in different places in Cork, there was at the end of novena, he got a chip van to be parked outside, so everybody could have free chips. in Knocknagree at the end of their novena, he told them all there was something special on the last night. And they all thought to be a medal or a rosary bead. But when they got there, the present he gave them the last night was actually a pound of sausages. And his idea was that they go home as a family, that they cook a pound of sausages, and that brought families together. So he always thought outside the box, he always thought differently, but all his thinking was to bring people closer to the Lord and to enjoy the experience of having met him. We think of God today in heaven as he welcomes Kevin home, that he'll be with his mother again, that he'll be with his father again. And I suppose great testimony that Kevin was such a brilliant preacher that one night I was in a bar in Killarney. It was a Thursday night after bingo, and I met a man and he told me Father Kevin said Mass in the cathedral on Saturday night. And then he began to tell me Kevin's entire sermon. And there's very few people will ever remember a homily, not an ordained Mass, but 5 days later. And the sermon Kevin gave, I tell you exactly what it is this evening here. He said, one evening he went home to his father Tom, and Tom said that they go to the bog. And Kevin didn't want to go to the bog at all, so Kevin said to his father, he said, the bogs are very wet at the moment. And Tom said to him, sure, we'll go up there, and if you go in first and if you sink, we'll know how wet they are. So anyway, they went to the bog, the two of them, but the bogs were quite wet, so they didn't stay there. And then they went for a drive instead, and they went to Kilkee. And when they got to Kilkee, the two of them sat in the car, and they were looking out at the ocean. And all of a sudden, this woman knocked on the door of the window of the car, and she asked them for help. She had a puncture, and she wanted to change the tire. So before Kevin could answer, Tom got in first, and he said, of course we will. And then he said, Kevin, you do that. So Kevin got out and he went changing the tire, but it was sometimes with the Jeep, it was a very difficult tire to get at. But eventually, he got the tire off, and he put on the new tire. And he was even down the tire with a jack. And just at the very last second, the woman said, be very gentle now, she said, don't make any noise or when you leave it hit the ground. Because she said, my husband is inside the car, he's asleep. And Kevin was furious, and the children came back in the car, and he kept saying to Tom, don't you ever volunteer me again for anything like that. They got back in the shop that evening, and the two of them weren't talking at all. And in the meantime, there was different people come in, buying their groceries, and people would notice that they'd go and talk to the customers, and eventually they went to bed at night, and Kevin went back to work and sort of forgot about it, and then he was at home again about 3 months later, and one of the men came into the shop, and he was late, he was delivering, I'm not sure he was delivering maybe bread or something, and he was late, and he said, I'm late today, he said, because I was at the funeral. He said, and the person that died, he said, he was very sick for a long time, and one of the things he wanted to do before he died was to go out to Kilkee to see the ocean for the last time. And when he was at the ocean that day, they got a puncture, and his wife, there was 2 men sitting in the car near them, and his wife said that these 2 men were very helpful, and they changed the tire for them. And I suppose then Kevin realised that it was himself and his father. And I suppose the great message in that sermon that he gave, and that the man remembered, and he told me, was that sometimes a good act, we never know who we're helping. We never know, it's always good to be kind, that people need kindness in their lives. Before I'd like to read a poem, because there are so many people that were friends of Kevin throughout not just Clare or Cork or Kerry, but throughout the country. Many people that only met him once were inspired by him in Killarney, especially when a lot of tourists were around. And I'm sure all his friends looking in this evening at this Mass, and all of you here today, will agree with this poem. It's called A Friend. A friend, an attitude within you, a talk you always can continue, a feeling you have known a while, a thought that sparks an inner smile. A friend, a person you hold dear, who ventures far, yet stays quite near, whose presence sets the spirit free, who brings out candor, honesty. A friend shares all your joys and fears, feels triumph with you and knows your fears, accepts your strengths and weakness too, won't let small things dull friendship too. A friend will walk life's miles with you and nourish values sound and true. Though paths may sometimes drift apart, true friendship never leaves the heart. I'll finish now by just telling you the different symbols of Kevin's life that are at the table at the altar today. First of all, the ministry of his priesthood is represented by his rosary bead and also a picture of the Sacred Heart. We all know he loves sports, and on his coffin there's a Clare flag and also an Everton flag. His communication was absolutely brilliant. We have one of his newsletters and also a book of articles that he wrote while he was in Liverpool as a priest. And he bound all his articles into this book. And I'm sure so many people were inspired by them. Kevin had a huge heart. The heart by the table is a symbol of his generosity and his kindness. There's a photograph of the doorway of hope from my van, where he preached and said Mass all through the pandemic. And also, as I said already, a photograph of the village of Curraclare, reminding us of his family, his community here in Curraclare, who gave us Kevin. And today we come back, he's done the full circle, he's back to you. But what a life he had, how many people's hearts he touched, his work is done. He's now received his All-Star in heaven. May he rest in peace.
But I try. So I would just like to thank everyone who has joined us in celebrating Kevin's funeral Mass today. Everyone here present in the church, a sincere word of thanks to everyone who would have loved to have been here, but chose to stay away so that we could bring Kevin safely home. I'd like to thank Father Casey for his warm welcome. To Edna, whom I haven't met yet, but I will, for her gorgeous music, the organ music. To the soloists, to Grania and Linda. It sounded like there was 100 of you up there singing, and it is so beautiful to hear singing in churches again. Thank you to Jackie, to Carmel and Rose for the prayers of the faithful, and to Neve and Cayman for the readings. I'm grateful to Kevin's good friend, Father Teddy, for reminding us of the colour and vibrancy of Kevin's life. Thank you to my family. How blessed I am that you could all be here today. Thank you to my friends in Scarlett and Denise Clare all over, again, who've chosen not to be here, but have sent messages and support or sympathy. A special word of thanks to Bishop Ray, Kerry Diocese. Thank you to Jackie, who worked beside Kevin and took care of him for the past 6 years, and who took extraordinary care of him over the last number of days. Father Nicholas in the diocesan office for his help and support in bringing Kevin home. Because Cura Clare is his home, indeed, a very good friend of Kevin's remarked, and many people have remarked since, that he was a Cura Clare man through and through. He lived and worked, as Father Teddy said, in many places during his priesthood. But this place was always his home. No doubt, it was where he was happiest. And now, it's where he's at rest. I don't know if anybody would mind if I blew my nose. On account of I can't be sniffy. One of my favourite prayers is from Cardinal Newman. You know it. You'll have heard it on occasions like this. It goes, O Lord, support us all day long, until the shadows lengthen, and the evening comes, and the busy world is hushed, and the fever of life is over, and our work here is done. Then, Lord, in your mercy, grant us a safe lodging, a holy rest, and peace at last. This prayer has a peculiar way of slowing me down. That life, the busy world is hushed, and the fever of life is over. That can happen in the blink of an eye. I got that message loud and clear this week. But look what awaits us. A safe lodging, a holy rest, and peace at last. People of all religions and none believe